business. Well, let's take a look at how the markets have been performing on this third day of May 2018. Has the shilling held steady or not? We should be finding out in a short while as we get the markets results. Well, as you can see there on the screen, there are the numbers. The shilling continues to appreciate against the US dollar. It's trading at 100.08, buying, selling at 100.28. Some interesting moves there on the dollar front. The sterling pound is trading at 136.31, buying, selling at 136.62, whereas the euro has also made a significant change. It was trading at about 120 last week. This week you're seeing it's trading at 119.76 against the Kenya shilling, whereas it's selling at 120.04. Well, let's turn our attention to the NSE performance, and this is how the markets closed. Well, turnover stood at 607 million shares. Shares traded was at 20 million. NSE 20 share index closed off at 3,705.36, whereas the bonds traded was at 1.4 billion worth of bonds. Well, let's take a look at the most active counters this afternoon, and let's see which stocks have defied market expectations so far. We have Safaricom, always there as one of the most liquid stocks. It's sort of moved about 25.69 million shares. Kenya Commercial Bank moving 3.25 million. Kenol Cobel moving 2.86 million. Equity Bank moving 1.7 million worth of shares. Let's close off with how the winning counters have been performing. We have Home Africa, very big in the real estate sector, and it seems the real estate is picking up by the day, especially after the unity talks began, where the stock is trading at 5.26%, valuation at a shilling, still down there. Stanley Fahari is also among the winning counters. It's up 4.55%, valuation at 11.5. Longhorn Kenya trading at actually up by 4.4%, with the schools just reopening. It's indeed, you can make the connection around the parents getting books for kids. Perhaps it could be an indicator of how the stock is doing well, and of course the investor sentiment. Well, on the closing counters, we have the losing counters, I beg your pardon. Deacons East Africa, it's down by 9.09%. Express Limited also not doing well, down by 9.09%. Centum Investment, one of the companies that has been making significant profits, the stock is down 6.55%, valuation at just under 40 shillings. Unga Group Limited also not doing so well in trading today. They're down just under 6% with a valuation of 39.50. Well, that's a look at the markets as of this hour, and we continue to keep you posted on more of the results. Well, let's take a look at some of the stories we have for you right now, and we start off with a breaking story around the banking sector. And Barclays Africa Group, South Africa's second biggest lender by market valuation, dropped KPMG as its joint auditor on Thursday, joining a host of local clients breaking ties with the company caught up in scandals. The decision will test South African regulators' conviction that the big four auditing firms are a key pillar of financial stability, and raises further questions about the survival of the local unit of the global accountancy business. Barclays, one of KPMG's major financial customers, joins more than 10 other clients, including the South African government and broker Safin, in breaking ties with KPMG South Africa. The auditor has struggled to retain clients since 2017 due to work done for a company owned by the Gupta family, who have been accused of using their links to former President Jacob Zuma to amass wealth, and more recently for small lender VBS Mutual Bank. Well, this is a report that we picked up from Reuters, and we continue to monitor this developing story and how it will affect KPMG Kenya. Well, that's one of the top stories in corporate Kenya today, and of course, touching across the region in East and Central Africa. Well, yesterday, President Uhuru Kenyatta did address Parliament, and he touched a number of issues when he made his State of the Nation address. He challenged Kenyans to embrace peace and reconciliation. While delivering his address at Parliament, the President cautioned politicians to end their unrestrained political competition. And as our senior political affairs reporter, Chris Thyro, reports, the President also commended opposition leader Raila Odinga for his efforts to reconcile the country since their now famous handshake.
It was the first State of the Nation address in the 12th Parliament by President Uhuru Kenyatta since his re-election in October last year, with his address coming in the backdrop of the famous handshake with opposition leader Raila Odinga. The president's speech was that of reconciliation, asking Kenyans to unite.
All of us, and in particular we leaders, have to admit that last year we failed in our duty to preserve the unity of this country, and we must make amends. First, I pray that all of us will spend the days and weeks after this address repairing the bonds that frayed last year. Let us shake hands and embrace our neighbors.
While noting that Kenyans lost their lives after the hotly contested presidential election last year, the president asked politicians to apologize to Kenyans for failing to unite the country and only focusing on unrestrained political competition.
Never again should a Kenyan life be lost for politics' sake. Never again should Kenyans' property be destroyed on account of politics. But, honorable members, we must also be frank with ourselves that that will not just happen on its own.
The president also acknowledged the efforts by both him and Raila Odinga in uniting the nation since the handshake that has also seen the establishment of a 14-member team to help in the implementation of the unity deal.
We also learned again a hard truth. Neither peace nor unity are a given. We must work for them. I say so because I believe last year taught me, that if we don't put an end to unrestrained political competition, it will put an end to Kenya.
On his Agenda 4, which includes better housing, affordable healthcare, food security and manufacturing, the president asked the politicians to focus on delivery rather than politicking.
Also during our period, complemented county service delivery in the reporting year by injecting Kenya shillings 9.6 billion for the managed equipment services, Kenya shillings 5.2 billion for free maternity, and Kenya shillings 900 million for user fees. Moreover, 2 billion shillings was distributed to 11 counties from the Equalization Fund to improve services.
The president also asked the judiciary to help in the fight against corruption in expediting the pending corruption cases. In his first term, the president sacked 6 of his cabinet secretaries linked to corruption. And after that speech by the president that called on all Kenyans to embrace peace and reconciliation, members from both houses, the National Assembly and the Senate, will spend the next 4 sittings debating the president's speech. However, the National Assembly is expected to go on recess tomorrow for a whole month. Chris Dairo, KTN News at Parliament Buildings.
Many thanks, Chris. And still staying with matters state of the nation, the President also laid out his Big Four agenda in Parliament. Let's now listen in to that.
I believe all of us, irrespective of our political persuasion, are in broad agreement. Kenyans want to see lower costs of living. They want jobs for their sons and daughters. They want affordable food on their tables. And indeed, Kenyans want to see broad and inclusive prosperity. These goals, honorable members, are reasonable, and indeed some of them are constitutional requirements in their own right. None of us today in this august House will have forgotten that last year was an election year, or that our region was severely affected by drought. Despite this, honorable members, it is encouraging to note that despite these challenges, our economy remained resilient. Our real gross domestic product grew by some 4.9% in 2017, much higher than the 3.6% for world real GDP and 2.6% for sub-Saharan Africa.
Well, from